Here on a Tuesday, welcome back to The Review. This is episode 2 of CBB Review's flagship podcast, and I'm your host, Brendan Hodges. Want to wish a happy holiday season to everybody and welcome you aboard. We have a ton to talk about today, some things that even casual college hoops fans know a ton about, and some things only the biggest fans might catch a whiff of on a daily basis. Right now, though, I want to start with this. I give the writers who come on this show a ton of time to dive deep into analysis and educated opinions on college hoops. So much so that I figured I'd give myself 5 minutes at the beginning of each show to put my own opinions out there and to introduce today's topics in a way that relates to our audience. So without further ado, and for the first of hopefully many times, here is my starting five. So it's best known that experience is the best teacher, but along with that comes history. As individuals, we learn history, love history, and live it out. And it doesn't matter whether it's a lesson in the classroom, current events in our homes, or a moment on the hardwood. Now, in our case, sports are what we look on as a vibrant source of history, and college basketball is one of those sports that has as complete a history as any other. It's filled with people like the late John Wooden and his 10 NCAA championships in 12 years. It's a history filled with moments, earth-shattering dunks, dagger threes, and the moments to make all of us who love the sport jump from our seats and cheer. It's a history filled with triumphs no one can see coming. UMBC over Virginia, the first 16-1 upset in NCAA tournament history. Or maybe you preferred Cinderella runs by schools like Florida Gulf Coast, George Mason, Loyola Chicago, and many more. And it's a history filled with heartbreaking defeats, decided by inches, or maybe even less than that. No matter what the history of college basketball is and always will be beyond the scope of words. What it won't be, though, beyond the reach of change. Some of those changes are small. The inclusion of an extension of a three-point line, going from no shot clock to 35 seconds and now to 30. Or going from short shorts to baggy shorts to somewhere in between. Other changes, though, have been huge. The discontinuation of high schoolers jumping straight to the NBA, the one-and-done rule, and top high school prospects choosing to play internationally rather than collegiately. Some changes seem unimportant, but in reality could bring about something special. A new face or faces to the ranks of Division I basketball, taking on some of the most recognized brands. This year is no exception. 4 programs have made the jump to the next level and are looking to write the next chapter in their program's history. So whether we're looking on the Blue Bloods or looking on the New Bloods, we're looking at some of the most exciting sports history there ever will be. We'll cover some of that history in this episode of The Review, and to help me do that, it's my pleasure to welcome in my colleagues from CBBReview.com. First, he's a current student at Jefferson University and a member of the Rams baseball team. Please welcome to the program a CBBReview.com senior writer, Sam Bass.
What's up, everybody? I'm happy to be here.
Next on the slate, he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science from Truman State University. Got his start in sports journalism when he was a member of the Super 10 committee with the NCAA and Turner Studios. And for the past 6 years, he's been interested in bracketology. Matt Majinski better watch out. Please welcome to the program another CBB Review senior writer, Mr. Matt Carter.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
And finally, he was on the program last time out. He graduated from Seton Hall University with a bachelor's in visual and sound media, minor in sports media, and concentration in television production, and now is a current graduate student in the broadcast and digital journalism department at Syracuse University. Also a senior writer, bracketologist, and the founder of CBBReview.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Matt Majinski.
Thanks. I've got to shorten that list because it might take us too long if we're going to read that every time. So I got to shorten that next time.
We'll see about that. We're going to get settled in here. I'll let these guys figure their stuff out. For now, though, let's take you through the biggest stories since we last saw you last week, starting with the developing situation within the Florida basketball program. It just came out half an hour ago. Gator star Keyontae Johnson is in stable condition after a collapse in last week's loss to Florida State. He was transported from Tallahassee to Gainesville 2 days ago, was undergoing further tests, and we heard today that he was able to FaceTime his team and is talking to his family and doctors. So we wish Keyontae the best in his recovery. A scary situation there, but seems to be heading for a good ending as well. On to game action, though, from the weekend. 6th-ranked Illinois taking on unranked but undefeated Missouri in the bragging rights game. The Fighting Illini flying high after a big win against Duke last week, but found themselves in a dogfight against Mizzou. Illinois got 36 points from Io to Sunmu, but not much else from the rest of the team, and the Tigers pulled an 81-78 upset to win their third straight in the bragging rights series. Tigers now 5-0 heading into their last non-conference game and have 2 wins over ranked opponents under their belts. As for the Illini, they head into their conference play when they face off against Minnesota on Tuesday. A couple of other ranked teams also found themselves in sticky situations this weekend, though. Keeping it going with the SEC theme, 12th ranked Tennessee holding off Cincinnati, the Volunteers, pulling away late in the second half despite shooting less than 20% from three-point range. John Fulkerson leading all scorers with 15 points and 12 boards. 16th ranked North Carolina taking on North Carolina Central. The Eagles shot the ball well from outside, 42% in fact, and turned the Tar Heels over 18 times. The Heels, though unfazed, did what they did best, winning the rebounding battle and getting to the free throw line. When it was all said and done, North Carolina 25 for 31 at the stripe, pulling away with a 6-point win. And finally, 23rd ranked Arizona State taking on Grand Canyon University. And this was one of the more exciting games of the weekend, close the entire way. Antelopes down 8 in the second half, rally to take a 2-point lead in the final minute thanks to threes from Javon Blackshear Jr. and Alessandro Levere. The Sun Devils, though, looking for an answer, turned to guess who, Remy Martin Jr. He had 28 points going into the last minute of the game. And with 9 seconds left, buried the go-ahead 3. Antelopes had one last chance. It was Blackshear. It rimmed out, and the Sun Devils survived 71-70. Other ranked action from the weekend, number 3 Iowa. Well, they've been on fire offensively so far this year. 3 straight games hitting the century mark. Only other team with a pair of wins from the weekend, West Virginia. 11th ranked Mountaineers took wins against North Texas on Friday and 19th ranked Richmond on Sunday. But now I turn to my friends from across the country. Starting with you, Sam. What's one big takeaway you had from this last weekend of college hoops?
I'm going to go back to Friday, and I'm going to look at Villanova's comeback against Georgetown. They were down 13 at half and went on a 17-4 run to tie the game at 50 to start the second half. That shows the fight that the Wildcats have, and they have some dogs. Colin Gillespie, Caleb Daniels each had 18, and they outscored Georgetown by 26 in the second half. Georgetown scored 17 in that second half for Villanova to pull away and avoid the upset.
Let's toss it to Matt Carter. Your story from the weekend, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at Clemson and Alabama. I know we're all waiting to see if we get to see them on the football field, but Alabama came into the game averaging 79 points a game, and Clemson held them to 56 points, 30% from the field, 13% from behind the arc, and their defense has just been spectacular all season. So it's going to be really interesting to see Clemson moving forward. Right now, they're sitting at 4th in the nation in team defense, and if you take out the 3 teams in front of them who haven't played actually a Division I team yet, they're the best defense in the country right now, and second in Ken Pom. So it'll be interesting to see them moving forward.
Matt Majinski, round us out.
Yeah, I know we already talked about it briefly, but I just think Missouri's win over Illinois is you've got to put Missouri on your radar if you don't already. You know, they came into that game already with a win over an Oregon team who's top 3 in the Pac-12. They beat a Liberty team who definitely can win their conference. So I see a Missouri team with probably one of the best slates of overall wins. I know Illinois is their only big-time ranked win, but if you're going to talk about big ranked wins, Illinois has definitely got to be up there. So Missouri right now, they have my eye.
And those are the stories in college hoops since we last saw you. Now to the first of our 2 big topics for the day. We're heading down south, a team we haven't talked about yet but deserves plenty of discussion. We're going to Big Blue Nation, and guys, I'm not going to lie, it was a rough weekend to say the least for Wildcats fans. The Cats taking on Notre Dame, and they were down early and often. In fact, down 22 at the half, and despite a second half surge, Wildcats couldn't come back, and they fall 64-63. That loss extends the Wildcats' losing streak to 4 games, and at 1-4, they're in the middle of their worst start in 36 years. They've also dropped back-to-back games at home for the first time since John Calipari took over at Kentucky. They'll have a chance to turn that around, though, on Saturday when they take on UCLA at the CBS Sports Classic. For now, though, I got to ask you guys, how worried should Kentucky fans be on the doorstep of SEC play? Whoever wants to start.
I guess
I'll start it off.
Sam, you got it. You got it.
I am very worried about Kentucky. And if you guys want to read more about this, check out cbbreview.com. I wrote an article on their struggles. But the gist of it is they are playing extremely fast and shooting a lot of threes. If you look at their past success, they're playing slower. They averaged 62.4 possessions per 40 minutes in 2015, and now they're averaging 71.4 per 40 this season. They're shooting 43% from the field compared to 48 in 2015 and 46 last year. And they're shooting 2.5 more three-pointers per game this season and shooting at a lower clip. The bottom line is Kentucky needs to start playing slower and more controlled and stop playing with a crazy fast offense because that leads to bad shots and low percentages. Kentucky's defense is fine, but if their offense is not performing at the level that it should be based on their recruits, they're going to lose. My main solution for this, Jacob Toppin has to be in the starting lineup. Kentucky needs to get bigger. They need to rebound better, and they need to take higher percentage shots rather than chucking up threes that have a low percentage compared to layups that have a high percentage. Jacob Toppin is an SEC player, but he's coming off the bench right now and not getting as many minutes as he should. He needs to be in the starting lineup, and Kentucky needs to go big, or else they're really going to struggle and honestly struggle to get a bid in the NCAA tournament.
Who do you want to go to?
No, I'm right there with you. I feel like there's two types of Kentucky fans, and the fan that is expecting to win the national championship every year, they should be the most worried, and they probably should have been worried coming into the season just with the amount of experience this team has, the minutes coming back. There really was nothing returning from last season. So that group should be worried for sure. I definitely think with Kentucky, though, they will figure it out. They will turn away to where they are going to make an NCAA tournament. So those fans should be fine. I think their biggest problem right now is they can't take care of the ball, and they're not sharing the ball. They rank 276 in the nation in turnovers per game, at 16.8. Their assist-to-turnover ratio, also at 276 in the nation, is under 1 at 0.73. So they are not doing what they need to do. But then we saw that second half against Notre Dame where they had four turnovers. Sorry, it was 4 turnovers and 11 total in the game. And they were able to make things happen a little bit. But defensively, they're not going to be the team to really turn you over and to create those opportunities that they really need. But defensively, they're going to be just fine because right now they're ranking 22nd at KenPom in defensive efficiency. So they're going to be able to find their ways to stay in these games. They didn't look amazing against Kansas or Richmond, which are definitely the best teams that they've played so far, but they were still in those games and they found a way to make things happen. And that was mostly because of their defense, and they were able to do that. So with Coach Cal and giving them some time, and like these guys are all new together, playing each other together. And so it's just going to take a little time, but I do think that with that, cutting down on those turnovers, being able to share the ball more and stop playing so much one-on-one, they're going to find a better chance. And I think those shooting numbers that you talked about, Sam, are going to increase once they do start sharing that ball more.
Yeah, and Matt, I've got to agree with you there too. I mean, just to take it even one step further, not only Richmond and Kansas, I think Notre Dame, I mean, Kentucky's had a very tough schedule. These are games where even if they were clicking how Coach Calipari might want them to at this point, they're all definitely losable games, even if they were playing half decent. But again, like you mentioned, I mean, it just seems like these newcomers just aren't passing the ball together. They're not running together with the type of team that Coach Cal would want to run. I know he mentioned that Terrence Clark at point guard might be something going forward. Davion Mintz just hasn't looked comfortable at all. He's really disappointed me. And I'm afraid that Olivier Sarr is going to be another Nate Sestina, a guy that might put up some decent stats, but not going to be the grad transfer that they're looking for at Kentucky. And I think that when you look at all of that combined, it isn't all Calipari's fault. You've got to look at a team that's just very young, and Coach Calipari's made it work before. So obviously, if he's made it work before with newcomers in this type of a system, that some of these guys just aren't getting it. I mean, I guess I'll end with, in his last press conference, he said that one of the guys literally did the opposite of the game plan and let 4 straight open threes go in for Notre Dame. Now, you could look at that one of two ways. Coach Cal said, well, if he was there, it would be a 9-point game. I don't agree with that in whole because these are college guys. These are all great shooters. I think it still would have been double digits. There's no way he's missing all 4 of them, even if the closeout was proper. But, I mean, you look at that, and some of these guys aren't buying in. So once they begin to buy in, it should be a turnaround. But a 1-4 start is definitely not good for any team.
Well, we're talking about Big Blue right now, but we've seen a couple of other blue bloods struggle early in the season. On top of the head, you see Duke, of course, losing to Illinois. Illinois, really good team, not taking anything away from them. But Duke struggled a bit this year, and for some people, maybe they canceled their non-conference schedule because of that. And we've even seen North Carolina take a loss, and we mentioned this earlier in the weekend review, struggle with North Carolina Central. So out of those 3 blue-blooded programs, then which one do you think is, well, do you think either of the other 2 is in a worse shape than Kentucky? Will probably play a lot better than Kentucky? Who would you say out of those 3 is underwatched the most? Let's start with Sam, go back around once again.
I don't think either of those teams are in a worse shape than Kentucky. I think Kentucky has a lot to work on when the other 2 little things, little fundamental things, game plans, but if I'm in the ACC and I can pick North Carolina or Duke to face off against, I'm picking Duke. North Carolina has a lot of guys who create matchup nightmares. It's just a matter of making shots and executing, and I know Roy Williams will make sure his guys do that. I love Garrison Brooks. He's an ACC Player of the Year candidate, and he is similar to Luke May with more athleticism, in my opinion. He's a very good basketball player. Duke, on the other hand, it's the same problem year after year. You have the guys, you have the recruits, but you don't have the experience. Sure, they're bringing back Matthew Hurt, Joey Baker, guys like that, but they didn't have a lot of playing experience. They're not getting a lot of floor time last season. So they're coming back arguably as a freshman-level experience player. So if I'm playing Duke, I know I can take advantage of their lack of experience. And honestly, you mentioned before, Coach K draws out when he knows that his teams are going to struggle. And he's a smart guy. He knows when his teams are good and he knows when his teams are bad. And when his teams are bad, he tends to bail, whether it's drawing out because of COVID reasons or opting to get a surgery. And I'm not saying it's not for medical reasons, but the fact that he's opting to get that at that time says something about the team he has. So I think Coach K is worried about Duke, and I think there's something going on there that we don't know that he does that will allow Duke to struggle in the future, especially in conference play.
I would definitely agree. I think Kentucky is definitely in the worst shape. They are just struggling too much, and it's not just a few pieces to fix. There's quite a few. So coming together throughout the whole season, it's going to take a lot of time for them. Duke, I don't think has as much to fix. So I think they're going to be better off, especially after Coach K has them in the gym, doing what he needs to, seeing these first 4 games, seeing this game against Notre Dame coming up. He'll be able to have them in the gym, correct them, and figure out what is best. We saw this before when he had his really young team. They came out, played man-to-man, right? That didn't work. They couldn't do it. So he was able to figure it out. He switched up to zone defense, and that team became really great because of it. So I think Coach K is going to figure out what he needs to do. He's already mentioned it before in one of his press conferences where he hadn't seen his guys. What he thought was going to work just did not work with these guys. And so seeing them in game action, he's able to now go about it and correct it. I think losses to Michigan State and Illinois are bad at all. Michigan State is just up there with Illinois in the Big Ten. They're going to be a tremendous team, and I think they're just going to keep getting better also this season. So I think right now I would say North Carolina is in the better situation, but I do think Duke might surpass them throughout the season.
Yeah, I think that's a really good take. I mean, I think we can all agree that Kentucky, not only the 1-4 start, it's just how they've looked on the court, who they've lost against. I mean, you look at Duke's losses, and there are 2 teams that both have Final Four potential. You know, you look at a Carolina team that I really got on them for their defense down low. I thought they did a pretty good job on Luka Garza, as good as they can with the guys that they have. Now they need to figure out the perimeter defense because they let Iowa score way too many buckets from outside. That's also a fantastic scoring team in Iowa. But I think Carolina's going to be fine. I think Caleb Love, if he can get a little bit smarter, he's one of the best offensive talents in the ACC. I really like his game. And I think Carolina's just going to improve. When you look at Duke, I do agree, though. I think they are going to improve. I see Matthew Hurt. I mean, again, obviously coming from my Syracuse bias, but I see a lot of Tyler Lydon in his game, a guy that can bang down low, hit the threes, maybe a little bit more athletic than Lydon, which is obviously another perk. And, I see a Duke team that has some guys like Sam mentioned that maybe just aren't clicking like they need to. But my one big point is where's Patrick Tape? Because this is a guy that was on the transfer market as a guy that is supposed to be a big-time player for Duke. And I know he's only played in the 2 games. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there an injury going on with Tape?
Nothing that I've heard of.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any injuries, but right now I see a guy that's played in 2 games, averaging 3.5 minutes. And again, I'll make sure to have the correct info on that if I am wrong. But, I mean, he was a sought-after transfer. Duke hasn't even really played him at all. They've played him like he's a walk-on right now. And I'm just really surprised at that. I wonder if he's a guy that hasn't fit in, hasn't been the guy that they thought he would be. But that's one thing there that I think is hurting Duke, because they got him, and I thought that he was going to be a guy that could start or come right off the bench, and he hasn't even played. So maybe that's a reason. But I do agree that both these teams are in good shape as far as they can still get seeded as a 4 or 3 or even a 2 seed if they can figure it out, because their losses aren't that bad.
All right, well, plenty to talk about with the Blue Bloods as per usual. For right now, we're going to head to a break. When we come back on the review, though, we'll debut a new segment and talk a little bit about the newest faces in Division I college basketball. Stay with us on the review. We'll be back in just a sec. Back here on the review, I'm Brendan Hodges, joined again today by Sam Bass, Matt Carner, Matt Majinski. We're on to our next segment. It's a new one, and it should be pretty interesting. This is At the Buzzer. Now, there are a ton of clutch moments that go on throughout the college basketball season, whether it's in the tournament, in the regular season, the conference tournament. Each of us has picked one to share with you. And we'll start with Sam, then Matt Carner, and then Majinski will finish us off. Sam, Matt Carner, Majinski, and then I'll finish us off. Sam, start us off. Your clutch moment of the weekend.
How about Xavier Pinson hitting a clutch jumper with 54 seconds to really ice the win over number 6 Illinois? That's a big shot for the Missouri program, and I think the Tigers are going to turn a lot of heads this conference season.
Yeah, I've got the Dayton-Mississippi State game, double overtime game. DJ Stewart of Mississippi State with a 3 in end of regulation, minute left to tie it, or to go ahead, and then Dayton's Ibby Watson, 2 free throws, 5 seconds remaining in the game to send it to overtime. And then at the end of first overtime, Mississippi State's Iverson Molina with the layup as time expired to head into double overtime before Dayton snuck out with the win.
That was a really good game, too. I've got St. John's and Georgetown. Donald Carey makes a layup for Georgetown with 9 seconds left. Greg Williams Jr. gets one out of a timeout for St. John's. They were able to go to overtime. And then Georgetown pulled it out at the end. It was kind of a wild ending, but a free throw at the end put Georgetown up by 3. St. John's wasn't able to get a shot off. And that was just another crazy day in the Big East, although neither team will probably be much anywhere, maybe the NIT once we get to March.
Oh, some shots there from Majinski. I'm going to go to the Big 12. Cade Cunningham, 10 seconds left to go against Wichita State. Tie game on the wing. Pulls up for 3, drains it. Nothing but net for Cunningham, and got him the win against Wichita State. Oklahoma State playing pretty well right now. Those were our clutch moments of the weekend. That was At the Buzzer. Let's transition, though, into our second topic of the day, and we'll see how this one goes because it's not often you talk about new teams in Division I. Every year, of course, we get to see new faces on the forefront of college basketball. Those are mostly freshmen or graduate transfers coming into blue blood programs like Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky. But then you have the schools that are making the jump to Division I in order to, like I said earlier, write the next chapter in their program's history. So this year, there are 4 of those schools making that jump. We're going to introduce them to you right now in alphabetical order, starting with the first new face coming from the Atlantic Sun, the Knights of Bellarmine University. They're a founding member of the Great Lakes Valley Conference, and the Knights have been to 2. Well, they've been a D2 powerhouse for the better part of the 2000s. In 15 years as the head coach, Scott Davenport has led them to 8 GLVC regular season and 5 tournament titles, On top of that, they went to 12 straight NCAA Division II basketball tournaments in which they reached 4 Final Fours and won the 2011 National Championship. In their first season in Division I, they're 1-2, their lone win coming up against Howard University earlier this month. Up next, one of 2 new members in the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference. Dixie State University, the Trailblazers, most recently a member of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. The Trailblazers are led by John Judkins, and he's led Dixie State to 9 NCAA Division II basketball tournaments, all of which came in the 2010s. Trailblazers' best finish came in 2011 when they reached the Sweet 16. And so far in D1, they're 3-0, undefeated. Wins over North Dakota, Denver, and an NAIA foe in St. Catharines. We mentioned there are 2 new members in the WAC. The second one is the Tarleton State University Texans, coming from the Lone Star Conference. And unlike the previous 2 teams, a first-year head coach, Billy Gillespie. Before he came to the Texans, though, they had made 14 Division II NCAA tournaments and a pair of Final Fours. They're 2-2 in this first year in Division I, and had a couple big boys on their schedule. Games against Gonzaga, Baylor, and Kansas all canceled or postponed, so opportunity missed for them. And finally, the fourth and final fresh face in D1 this year, out of the Big West, the Tritons from the University of California at San Diego. Transitioning to Division I from the California Collegiate Athletic Association, they're led by fifth-year head coach Eric Olin, and the Tritons have appeared in NCAA tournaments at the D2 and D3 level, with their best finish in each coming in the Sweet 16. So, 4 new faces in D1, and now I'll ask our panel, which of the 4 will have the most success in year 1? Sam, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go with Bellarmine, just because of their previous success in Division II. They have the most NCAA tournament wins out of the 4 newcomers. They're the richest program and the most recent success. As you mentioned, 12 straight Division II appearances with the 2011 win in the tournament, the whole tournament. I think Bellarmine will have a lot of success. They also have a lot of good experience coming in the non-conference slate. I think they have a chance in their conference to really make a run, and maybe not the NCAA tournament, but I can see the CBI or NIT possibly for that program.
They won't be able to play postseason because of the transition period, but most success could mean a regular season conference title. So I appreciate the enthusiasm, though, for the newcomers. Maybe in 4 years they'll be able to make the tournament.
Yeah, so coming into the season, I would have went with San Diego. They basically are returning their entire team from a team that went 30-1 last year, but then Tyrell Roberts decided to opt out of the season with COVID issues and COVID reasons. So I am also going to go with Bellarmine. They've past 5 seasons, they've reached at least a rank of number 3 in the Division II top 25. So Bellarmine, I've seen them play in person. The Great Lakes Valley Conference is one of those conferences that could arguably be the best men's basketball conference in Division II. And they've always been a powerhouse there and always one of those teams that people are out to get. I think them this year, but I do want to keep my eye on Tarleton State with Billy Gillespie there. I think they might have the most success of the 4 moving forward, but they're just not quite ready for that this year.
Yeah, Matt, I'm going to highlight Tarleton State. And really, again, for me, it just goes with the Billy Gillespie factor. I mean, you look at a guy who coached at Texas A&M, coached at Kentucky, coached at Texas Tech. He has a lot of experience. They already played Texas A&M and only lost by 7 points. They were supposed to play Gonzaga. They've got Kansas and Baylor coming up on their schedule. So I wonder if it's going to have the Texas Southern factor as, a team that plays so many of these top-ranked programs, and maybe it'll help them in conference play. I do agree. I think from a team standpoint, they still have a little bit of ways to go. But just the fact that they've got Gillespie at the helm there, keeps my eye on them because he might be able to get a couple wins that they might not have thought they might be able to get coming into the season. And then obviously with the 2 games against Chicago State, those have got to be wins for them.
All right, well, we've mentioned 3 of the 4 teams. The one that we've left out, though, are Matt's Trailblazers, Dixie State. He mentioned that they retweeted something that he had put out earlier this week, the undefeated graphic. I don't see why no one's giving some love to the Trailblazers. What's taking you guys away from them?
For me, it's the lack of success they had in Division II. Obviously, They were very good, but no Final Fours, no tournament wins, no championships. Just kind of pushed me away from them and onto Bellarmine.
Yeah, I mean, Denver, North Dakota, I don't know if those are great wins. They're both ranked in the 300s at KenPom, so it's just kind of one of those teams you just keep your eye on, but I don't expect from them this season in the WAC.
Yeah, I mean, again, a 3-0 team, you can't knock undefeated, but like Matt said, I mean, none of those wins are even close to impressive. Again, don't want to knock this team. They've got 4 guys in double digits right now, so I mean, clearly they have some balanced scoring, but you just need to see more out of them. How do they compete against even a team that's between 200 and 250 in the KenPom, something like that? You just need to wait until you can even see that.
Oh, we've definitely seen these teams try and schedule some pretty big schools. We mentioned that Tarleton State had games scheduled against Gonzaga, Baylor, and Kansas. Those are 3 top 5 teams, but those games all canceled or postponed. And Bellarmine played Duke earlier in the year. The connection between their coach Scott Davenport and Coach K, it helps pay dividends for these programs. And just out of curiosity for you guys, what do you think those relationships mean to coaches that are moving up into the ranks of Division I and to be able to play some of the blue bloods to get their players some experience at the highest level of college basketball?
I think it's huge. I think as a small program who's kind of pushing their way and making it into Division I to get even further on the map and play these tough competitions, one, it gets them better for their conference because none of these teams are going to face a Duke, a Gonzaga, a Baylor in conference play. But also it gets them noticed. It's a good story to tell. It's good for the kids to say, hey, I played against Duke. I scored against Duke. It's a great opportunity for the players, for the school to get noticed and get their names out there. It's just an overall bonus. So when you have that connection as a smaller school, it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And Matt mentioned Texas Southern, who has done this for years, and that mostly all started when Mike Davis was there, who at a time he coached at Indiana, and I believe he went to a Final Four with them as well. So, these connections are built there. Scott Davenport at Bellarmine, he worked with and under Rick Pitino and Denny Crum, so he's got those connections. Billy Gillespie has the connections, and it's just going to allow these players who thought they were going to school to play Division II basketball, all of a sudden you're jumping to Division I, and your whole mindset kind of changes. But this kind of gives you that opportunity to really play with these guys and have a lot of fun with it.
Matt Majinski, I know we're running out of time here on the Zoom limit, but please give your quick thoughts if you have any.
Yeah, I'll just wrap it up real quick. Again, it's just none of these teams are thinking about, competing at the top of their conference right away. But again, good stories to tell the kids. Playing these teams will bring in money for their athletics programs, and that's what they're trying to do. They want to survive at the D1 level, at least for now.
Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on these newcomers and any other newcomers that make their way to Division I over the course of the next couple of years, and maybe we'll have a couple of really good stories to tell. For now, though, we'll take another time out, and when we come back, we have our 3-point play and quite a bit more. Stay with us here on The Review. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Review. Brendan Hodge is here alongside our panel of writers, and now we head into one of my favorite segments. This is our 3-point play. So here's how it works. I have 3 basketball-related trivia questions for our panel. And by basketball today, it means basketball, not like the NBA, but college basketball. Just so happens that some of these questions aren't necessarily just about college basketball. Anyway, each correct answer, it's a point. Most points wins. Pretty simple right now. If any of these 3 gentlemen get all 3 right, they will get a chance at a 4-point play via a bonus question that I also have. Current leader in this makeshift competition is the only participant who has played so far, and that is Matt Majinski. He went a perfect 3 for 3 last time out. Let's see if he can do that again. God, I hope not. And we'll see if he can maybe lose out to one of the other fine gentlemen who are here today. Gentlemen, are you ready? All right, question 1. Which of the following schools won an NCAA tournament championship first? Kentucky, UCLA, Indiana, or North Carolina? We'll go.
I'm gonna go with.
Oh, sorry. We'll go in the same order that we were going in with the discussion. So, Sam, you'll answer first. Matt, you'll answer second. Matt, you'll answer third. If you guys want to write it down on a piece of paper so I know you're being legit and not copying each other's answers, that would help as well.
Well, I don't have paper with me.
You can send it in the chat. That'll make you a little more interesting.
I trust you guys.
All right.
I trust everyone.
So Sam, your answer.
My gut's telling me UCLA because that's the most storied program, but I'm going to go with Indiana. I'm going to throw a curveball.
All right, Matt Carner, your answer.
I was also thinking Indiana. I was kind of on the same lines, thinking UCLA maybe, but I want to say Indiana knocked one in first.
All right, Matt Majinski, your answer.
I know Kentucky's most of their success came a little bit later, but I'm pretty sure they got one in the 60s, so I'll go with Kentucky.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it happened. Matt Majinski got a question wrong. Sam and Matt Carner, you are correct. The answer is Indiana. They won their first NCAA tournament in 1940. Kentucky, Matt, won theirs a little bit earlier than you thought, 1948. North Carolina in 1957. UCLA in 1964. So Matt and Sam on the board. Matt Majinski in despair. Don't worry, though. We have a little surprise brewing for this edition of 3-Point Play. But we had to question 2. Which of the following was not provided in the original 13 rules of basketball drawn up by Dr. James Naismith? A, penalty for fouls. B, the opening tip. C, a 10-foot-high basket. Or D, dribbling.
Okay, so I know that the peach basket was 10 feet high, so I'm going to rule that one out. And dribbling seems like the one that should be in there, which is why I don't think it would be a multiple choice if it wasn't the answer. I'm going to go with dribbling.
All right, Matt Carner, your answer.
Can you say the first 2 again for me? The first 2.
A is penalty for fouls. B is the opening tip.
All right, so I want to say that dribbling was not allowed, but I want to say it was in the rules saying that, so I am going to go towards the penalty towards fouls.
All right, and Matt Majinski.
I'm stuck because I'm between those 2. I remember reading something about how in the first game it was like a madhouse and everyone just kept running into each other like it was football, and I can't remember if that was because there was no dribbling or because there were no fouls. I'm going to go with no dribbling.
Well, gentlemen, the answer is D. Dribbling was not included in the original 13 rules. Matt Carner, unfortunate for you, but you did not get that one correct. Sam on a roll here in his first appearance in 3-Point Play, and Matt Majinski back on the board. So far, Sam in the lead with 2 points, Matt Carner with 1, Matt Majinski with 1 as we head to question 3. Now, this one's for all the short guys in the room. Matt, I know you'll appreciate this question. You're a little bit shorter in stature than most of our classmates thought originally. But who was the first major college player to score over 2,500 points while standing less than 6 feet tall? Pete Maravich, Calvin Murphy, Muggsy Bogues, or Phil Ford?
Oh man, this is I think where I'm gonna slip up and miss out on the 4-point play, but I'm gonna go with Pistol Pete.
All right, Matt Carner.
I was thinking the exact same, going with Pete.
All right, Matt Majinski.
Well, Brendan, I'm 5'10", 6'1" on a good day. I'm going to sound really embarrassed if I get this wrong, but I am 99.5% sure the answer is Niagara's Calvin Murphy.
And you would be correct. It is Calvin Murphy, starring for Niagara University. He was 5'9", scored 2,548 points in his career. It's Majinski and Sam Bass with 2 of the 3 correct. Matt Carner with 1. So, Matt, unfortunately, you are now out. Actually, yeah, you are still out because you can't get to 3 anyway. For Matt and Sam, though, it's a holiday. It's the holiday season, right? And I seem to be in a very generous mood today. I have a 5th question that was a bonus question in case no one got to 3, because everybody wants to see a 4-point play the first time out, right? So we're going to go back to dribbling and how it wasn't included in the rules that Dr. Naismith drew up originally for basketball. This is just for Sam and Matt. This is my favorite sort of question, by the way. It's a 50-50 chance, true or false. So we talked a little bit about it earlier, and now you know that Dr. Naismith's original rules for basketball said nothing about dribbling. But here's where it gets a little tricky. True or false? In 1927, there was an attempt to ban dribbling from the game of basketball, a move that was countered through the formation of the National Association of Basketball Coaches. True or false?
This is too specific of a to be false. I'm sure.
What was that, Sam? You broke up a little bit.
Did I cut out there?
Yeah,
Yes, you did.
Keep going though.
All right, I'll go again. That's my fault. It's too specific of a historical fact to be false, so I'm going to say true.
You sure about that?
Yes, I'm locking it in.
Matt Majinski.
See, it's just like it seems too specific, but then you're reading off a paper. So you could have just changed the year and acted like it was specific. So I'll just say that it's false and that it was a different year.
Well, I can tell you that one of you got it right. If you'd like to know my mindset for these sort of questions, by the way, you can check out a certain YouTube channel. I'll talk to you guys about it after the show. The answer, though, is true. Yes, the National Association of Basketball Coaches was formed to oppose the move to eliminate dribbling from the sport. While it wasn't put into the rules, it was introduced by a team. Everybody picked it up and ran with it, and there were some, I guess, basketball purists who were like, excuse me, we'd like the game to stay pure. We don't want dribbling, but it survived. So because Sam got the bonus, he will move on to try and complete the 4-point play. So Matt and Matt, it was a good run, but you're going to have to sit this one out. Sam Bass, welcome to the 4-point play. So this one is at least what I thought would be the hardest question. We'll see if it really is. A little bit of history here as well. What school was the first team to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament 3 years in a row 3 years in a row, but did not win a tournament game? Your choices are A, Oklahoma from 1988 to 1990, B, DePaul from 1980 to 1982, C, Virginia from 1981 to 1983, or D, Kentucky from 1995 to 1997?
You asked me the wrong question. I'm a Virginia fan. My dad went to school during the Ralph Sampson era. I'm locking in Virginia.
Well, that is incorrect,
Oh, man.
Sam. The question, again, was what school was the first team to be a number 1 seed in the tournament 3 years in a row and they did not win a game in those tournaments?
Win a game.
You jumped the gun there. Now we know that Sam doesn't listen to the question in their entirety. You just hear Virginia and decides to go with it. The answer to that question is DePaul from 1980 to 82. They were ranked first in the nation in all 3 of those years. Thus, they were the top-seeded team. And in that time period, that was when the top-seeded teams received a bye into the second round. They ended up losing to UCLA, St. Joe's, and Boston College in their first games, respectively, in each of those years. Gentlemen, you did well. No one could complete the 4-point play today, but you know what? Hopefully no one ever does, because that means I'm doing my job the right way. And that's today's 3-point play. Now, let's go ahead and transition to stories to start the rest of your week. We have another jam-packed week of college hoops. And that excites everybody here and everybody else on the CBB Review staff. Nod your head if you agree. There we go. Sam, a little delayed there, but we'll give him a pass for that. We all have things that we're going to be watching for. Maybe not me necessarily, but these three guys write a lot. They're paying attention to a lot of stuff. And here we go with stories to start your week. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Matt Garner, you're going to start us off. What are you looking out for throughout the course of this week?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you gotta keep your eye on women's basketball tonight with Tara Vanderveer, Stanford, #1 ranked team, and if they can play Pacific tonight, if she wins, she surpasses Pat Summitt at the most wins in Division I women's history. So most likely going to happen, but great storyline to follow there. And then a couple teams that I really want to keep my eye on. Alabama, St. Louis, and Marquette. Alabama is playing Furman tonight, a great mid-major program who also has a tough week ahead for them. And then they got Western Kentucky on Saturday, another great program. Charles Bassey is going to be a phenomenal player. Hopefully he next level when he's ready to go, just keeps going. So Alabama, I'm going to keep my eye on there. The SEC really needs those wins. It's not doing great overall with non-conference wins, and it's still kind of up in the air of how the committee's truly going to treat non-conference this year. So those are going to be really big for them. St. Louis added to the list because of that game that was added with NC State tonight, or on Thursday. But they got Indiana State tonight, home against NC State, and then Minnesota on Sunday. They, to my eyes, are the best mid-major program right now. They just haven't gotten the national attention yet because they didn't play anyone on a big-time program. They beat LSU, but they aren't there with Richmond and San Diego State in the rankings because no one's seen them yet. So I want to keep my eyes on them. And the lastly is Marquette. Huge win last night over Creighton. And then Thursday, Seton Hall, and then at Xavier. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep that going forward.
Oh, a quick note on women's basketball as well. News coming out that they will also most likely play their tournament in a singular location. And maybe not, it'll be San Antonio, which basically means it'll probably be in San Antonio. So, again, interesting storylines to follow with that as well. We'll go to Sam Bass next. Sir, your stories to look forward to this week.
So I got two that I'm really looking forward to. The first is Duke getting tested by Notre Dame, who's coming off maybe not as quality of a win as we thought it would be before the season started, but they just beat Kentucky, held off a comeback in the second half. I think Notre Dame is dangerous. They're one of the spoiler teams in the ACC who can really give the big dogs some trouble. And Duke's taking a layoff. Duke hasn't played in a while. I think Notre Dame could give Duke some trouble in that game. My second is Saturday, the marquee matchup, Iowa facing off with Gonzaga. And I'm really looking forward to Iowa proving that they're the best team in the nation. I think Iowa is the best overall team. They have obviously Luka Garza, but they proved against UNC that they have some guys who can shoot and they can stretch the floor and provide even more opportunity for Luka Garza to score inside. And I think Iowa's the best all-around team in the country, and they should prove that on Saturday when they play a very, very good Gonzaga squad.
Matt Majinski, once again, you're last. And once again, you finish this out. What are your stories to look forward to this week?
Yeah, I also have two. And my first one, again, I'll go on that Notre Dame-Duke game, but from another standpoint is I know we've seen all of these things, like it was like the first time that Boeheim, Roy Williams, and Coach K all lost on the same day or something like that. And then there was another one where it was North Carolina, Kentucky, Duke, and UCLA all outside the top 20. I don't remember the exact stats, but if Notre Dame beats Duke, I wonder if that's the first time that a team has beaten two blue bloods like that right in a row, or at least, to be real specific, beat Kentucky and then Duke back-to-back. I think that's something that I want to dig into the record books for, see if that would be a first time. And then also, again, I know that we'll have our podcast on Thursday, but who knows if we'll get to it. And UConn, their first Big East game against Creighton, if they do end up playing it, UConn's on their second COVID stoppage of the year. But, I mean, that'd be a fantastic game, first off, just to see Creighton's high-powered offense against James Bouknight and the Huskies. And I think it'll be a really good game, and to see how UConn fits into the new Big East.
And how Creighton bounces back. They were just upset, weren't they?
Yeah. Yep.
It worked.
All right, and those are the panelist stories to start your week stretch. Now let's head to the final part of tonight's episode. Let's just say the shot clock's off. It's dark. We got less than 30 seconds to go in the game, gentlemen. And it's been a good show so far on episode 2 of the review. What do you guys say we ended up with some game picks? We got a handful of them that are going on throughout this stretch at the middle of the week. And we'll start off with this one. Made a couple changes at the beginning of the show. We're going to start off with a team that Matt Carter mentioned just a bit ago, NC State going up against St. Louis. Matt, you think St. Louis is the best mid-major team in the nation so far? And we'll start with you. Who's going to win, St. Louis or NC State? And, let's go by how much, too. That's going to set up something that comes later.
All right. I definitely do, especially getting the game at home. I believe St. Louis will take care of North Carolina State. It's just I think their defense has been fantastic this year as well. And their offense is much improved of last year. It's basically the entire team returned from probably the one team that gave Dayton the most trouble last year. They 2 games took them to the wire. They should have won both games if they could have made free throws. This year, their offense is much improved from that. So I do believe that St. Louis will be able to take care of NC State. And I will say, final score, we'll go 76-72.
I'm with Carter. I love St. Louis's defense, and North Carolina State struggles against good defenses. When the defense is kind of off of them, they can thrive offensively, but once they tighten it up, and you can say this for all teams, but NC State especially struggles. I think St. Louis will pull this out, the home court advantage. Although not as much, it's still a deciding factor in college hoops. I think St. Louis wins by a score of 68-61.
I've also got St. Louis, so mark that down. 3 of us with the Billikens. Last year, I called a Seton Hall St. Louis game. This year, my buddy from the Hall, Rich Behan, reminded me and told me that at that game, I said, wow, this St. Louis team is going to be real good. I don't remember that. I'm happy he did because that's kind of like a really cool shameless plug there. But Gibson Jimerson has been playing fantastic. I think he's an X factor on a team that's already got so much talent. And I'm going to go with the Billikens 80-69. Nice.
All right, moving on to our second of 5 picks we have for today. Another change right before the show. Oregon taking on a San Francisco team who's had an eventful season so far. Of course, San Francisco upsetting Virginia earlier this season. We'll start with Matt Majinski on this one. It's San Francisco, it's Oregon. Oregon's already been beaten by Missouri this year. It was another ranked win for the Tigers. But who takes this one, San Francisco or Oregon?
I really do like San Francisco's team. I think that they have one of the youngest coaches in college basketball. We did an interview with him a couple weeks back, and he's got something brewing there. But LJ Figueroa and Oregon, he's one of the better transfers. Oregon picked him up, and he is going to be very tough to handle in the Pac-12. It's a reason why I think Oregon's going to win the Pac-12, even though I think Arizona State has the highest ceiling. I think that Oregon and Dana Altman are going to get it done. And in this game, I just don't know who on the Dons will be able to handle Figueroa. And I'll go Oregon 72, San Francisco 64.
All right, Sam Bass.
I love San Francisco's backcourt because they destroyed my Virginia Cavaliers. Khalil Shabazz, Jamari Bouye both put up double digits in that game. They have a tremendous backcourt, and those guards can give them trouble. But I think Oregon has the advantage because of a different transfer, and that's Eugene Omoruye, transfer from Rutgers. He would be the Pac-12 Player of the Year if Remy Martin was not in the league. I love his style of play. I think Oregon has the advantage in this game, but very slightly. I'm going to go a high score, possibly even overtime. Oregon, the 89-85 advantage.
All right, Matt Carter, round us out, second game of 5.
Another 3 for 3 here. I'm also going with Oregon. I'm still not completely sold on San Francisco. They had a wonderful win over Virginia, and you cannot put anything against that win. It was great. But they've also lost to first game of the season to UMass Lowell. They just lost the other night to California on a buzzer beater, probably another team that they should have beat from where they've been. So I just don't think that they are the consistent enough program yet to that team this year to really be able to knock it in to take down Oregon. I don't think this one will be very close. So I'm going to go Oregon 73-59.
All right, moving on. Third of 5 games, 20th ranked Ohio State taking on Purdue. And this game, I'm going to be frank with you guys, pretty much a toss-up. It'll be just the second game on the road for the Buckeyes, but in a year like this, does it really matter? And I asked our panel, will it matter? Will Purdue get the win on their home floor, or will Ohio State continue its winning ways? We'll start with Sam Bass, then we'll go to Matt Majinski, and then Matt Garner again.
I think Purdue gets the win on their home court, but it's not because of their home court. It's because of their front court. I love Zach Edey. He is basically the replacement for Matt Harms, who left for BYU in the transfer market this offseason. But Zach Edey is a freshman who's very raw, and he sees the court very well. So he can pass out of the post. He's very good at that. He's a good free throw shooter. He gets to the line often. And it's very hard to guard someone who's 7'4". And he's strong. He's not a flimsy 7'4". He is built. So I think he will give Ohio State a lot of trouble down low. And I think that's the deciding factor in this game. I like Purdue 68-58.
Do we forget the order already, Matt?
Is this me or
That's Majinski. Come on, man. Let's go. Pay attention.
My bad. Call me sleeping there. I've got Ohio State in this one. I do like that Sam pointed out Zach Edey. He's a terrific player. I just think Ohio State's guards between Dwayne Washington and C.J. Walker. They've also got Liddell down there. They've got a lot of players on this Ohio State team that I really like. I think that it's not Ohio State's best team since, in this past decade or so. They've had some better talent, but I do think it's a Buckeye team that could make a run to the Sweet 16. I think Purdue's a little bit young right now, and I think Ohio State could expose that. I do agree with Sam on around where this game is going to be as far as the score. I'm just going to have Ohio State 67-62.
All right. I also believe it's going to be a close game. With EJ Liddell, he's been kind of question mark if he's going to play or not. Non-COVID issues is what they're saying, but we're just not sure what's going on with him. So if he doesn't play, it's going to be even closer. Purdue, again, it's not a team that, their last game against Miami when they blew a 20-point lead without Miami's best scorer and Chris Lykes on the floor. It's just really type of program I think this Purdue team is. They really haven't found anything ever since Carson Edwards left. Like, they just can't find what they are. Love Mackey Arena. Fantastic place to play basketball, but I do have Ohio State taking this one 65-60.
Moving on, and who would have thought that a game between a ranked Duke and an unranked Notre Dame could be as important as this upcoming game could be? Both teams are 2-2. Duke's coming off a 15-point loss to Illinois, and Notre Dame's coming off really surviving by a thread against Kentucky. It's an understatement, I think, to say that both of these teams need a win to build some confidence and get their seasons officially on track. So we'll start with Matt Garner, we'll go to Sam Bass, and then we'll end with Matt Majinski. Who wins, Duke or Notre Dame?
I think Notre Dame's one of the few teams that always gives Duke some trouble in the past with Mike Bray being a former assistant. And so it's always a question mark there, but I think Krzyzewski has really figured him out and is back in the realm of he's going to take care of things. Duke is by far the more talented team. I know they're struggling, what a lot of people are saying, but I do believe that they are definitely the better team still at this point too, even if they are struggling. I don't think that this one will be super close. So I'm actually going to go Duke by 15, and I'm going to say 80-65.
For me, Duke has had 8 days of rest, and if Coach K is still here, that means he thinks he has something. So that's 8 days of practice, 8 days working with his guys, finding something that works. he's obviously a very good basketball coach. He knows what he's doing. And if you give him more than a week to prepare for a game, he's going to win the game. As much as I'd love to see Notre Dame go back-to-back beating two Blue Bloods, I think Duke pulls away with this one, and I think they win handily 78-61.
I think whoever wins this game, there'll be some type of false hope, because I really don't think either team – like if Duke wins, everyone's going to be like, okay, are they back? If Notre Dame wins, people are going to be writing them as this team that you need to keep an eye on, which I don't think is very true at all. I do think that, like Sam mentioned, that Duke has those days of rest. That's going to help them. They're the more talented team. I've got Duke winning at 79-71. I know Coach Bray might be able to draw up something, and they've got some talent. I mean, it's definitely a great game, but I think Duke will win that one.
And to be honest with you guys, I think the biggest upset of the day is Matt Majinski not picking his darling Notre Dame team. He picked him last week to beat Kentucky and was right. I was expecting him to pick him again. But we head to the last game of our pick segment, and finally, it's two ranked teams meeting in the Big 12. We have 5th-ranked Kansas, and we have 14th-ranked Texas Tech. And don't let the rankings fool you. These teams are really closer than you might think they are, and I'm not going to say this will happen, but it could be a Big 12 championship game in the future. Maybe, maybe not. You got West Virginia in there too, but right now it's Kansas, Texas Tech. Both teams on winning streaks. And it's really the headliner for Big 12 conference play. Texas Tech favored, despite being a lower-ranked team, but we all know it's going to be a close, nitty-gritty Big 12 matchup. So, gentlemen, tell me who you got in this one. We'll start with Majinski, we'll go to Carner, and then we'll finish it up with Bass.
I don't know if this one will be that close, actually. I think Kansas will win by double digits, if you want to know the truth. I am not a fan of Mac McClung. I think that he's a ball stopper on offense. I'm being really hard on him now. I know he's a highlight factory. I don't know if this Texas Tech team is as good as people are giving – or as good as people are saying they are. Kansas really impressed me in that win over Creighton. I was hard on Kansas. They came back and beat a Creighton team that can score – top 10 in the nation on anyone. And I think that really impressed me. Again, I think this is a young Kansas team. They've got some good talent, but I'm going to go with Kansas winning this one 80-68.
I'm right there with you on McClung. And he's that type of player you just don't know what you're going to get. And I think that's where I am struggling with Texas Tech, because their defense is great, right? We always know they're going to defend, but is McClung going to have that breakout game? Is he going to have a fantastic game? We don't know. And I think with him not being that question mark and this type of game, they struggled. Their lone loss, Texas Tech, is to Houston, a type of team that's going to grind you out, wear you down, physical team. They struggled with Abilene Christian, and it was kind of the same lines. Abilene Christian really just gave them physical battles. They fought them hard. Defense, and Texas Tech barely scraped out a win there. And I think Kansas is along the same lines. Their offense isn't great, but I think with Kansas's ability to have that defensive presence when they need it, that they're just going to really wear out on Texas Tech. I do think it'll be a little closer, so I'm going to go Kansas 73-67.
I want to start off by addressing the disrespect that we're giving to our colleague Shannon Boy's former high school product, Mac McClung. I don't think he's as bad as you guys are making him out to be. Obviously, he's an attention grabber. He will not perform up to people's expectations because they're too high. He is a very good basketball player, and he will assist this Red Raiders team during Big 12 play. However, he will be guarded by Marcus Garrett, most likely. Jalen Wilson is a very good scorer for Kansas. Kansas does very well against teams who have good defenses and not as high-powered an offense. You saw that they struggled with Gonzaga because of their offensive juggernaut that Mark Few puts out there game after game. Kansas will not struggle with a good defensive team without the offensive power, which is why I think they'll beat Texas Tech. It will be close, but I have Kansas winning 74-73.
Well, that's the way to end it off on a high note. Some controversy. Maybe we'll have a little bit more of that as the year goes on and the podcast grows. But for now, those are our panelist picks for the week stretch of games. And like I say, it's a good show, guys. Good show today. We're closing up shop here on a Tuesday night. For those of you who are tuning into this after it's being recorded, we encourage you to come back in 2 days' time on Thursday. We've set up this podcast to where episodes will be released on Tuesday, covering the weekend and preceding Thursday, those couple days in the middle of the week, and then looking forward to the weekend and going right back around. Maybe we'll add another episode in there if we have the time and resources, but for now, we're keeping it small. I'd like to thank Matt Majinski, Matt Carner, and Sam Bass for coming in. It was a pleasure meeting Sam and Carner for the first time, and Matt, always a pleasure to see you, even though it's on Zoom. This is a work in progress, and we're definitely going to add some more to it. Stay tuned for Thursday. Don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but you can be sure we'll review the week up to Thursday and give you some insight on what's going on over the weekend. For now, though, clock's at 0. We'll take it on out into the night. Hope you all enjoyed this episode of The Review, and we'll see you on Thursday. For myself and the rest of the crew, have a great rest of your night.